The Blue Beaded Bracelet. Every new year is welcomed by people with wishes of hope, peace, happiness, and health. And the more beautifully, excitedly, and sincerely this welcome is offered, the more it finds a lasting place in memory, leaving behind unforgettable recollections. Susan and David wanted to welcome the coming new year in exactly this way. It was the 6th year of their marriage, and together with their son John, the most beautiful gift of this union, they carried the excitement of stepping into the new year atop the snow at a ski resort, creating unforgettable memories. The hotel they would stay in for New Year's Eve was located right next to a ski center, at the foot of a mountain rising over 4,000 meters above sea level. Susan and David had planned this winter vacation months in advance. John, who was still in preschool, was an intelligent child with sharp perception. Every day, he excitedly told his classmates about the details of their New Year's holiday. During activity time, he would always draw pictures of his family skiing together, carefully color them, and hang them proudly on the classroom walls. Susan and David arranged their leave together and planned to hit the road 4 days before New Year's. All their preparations were made accordingly. The suitcases were packed, ski equipment purchased, and everything needed for a winter holiday had been taken care of. New Year's Eve fell on the night connecting Saturday to Sunday. On the Tuesday morning of that week, they woke up early and sat down together for breakfast before setting off. The ski resort they were heading to was quite large and hosted many guests, especially during the winter season. Anticipating even greater interest for New Year's Eve, David checked the most suitable route for their 6-hour journey and simultaneously reviewed the weather conditions along the way. After making a final check of their home, they got into their car and began the journey. John was seated in his safety seat, securely fastened in the back seat. His mother, of course, had taken precautions to keep him entertained along the way. A tablet loaded with his favorite cartoons, homemade snack cakes, and his toys were all within easy reach. The journey was calm. From time to time, lightly falling snowflakes created postcard-like scenery against the backdrop of distant snowy hills. At one point, David focused on notifications arriving on his phone. Due to weather conditions along their route, there was a possibility of some roads being closed to traffic, and vehicles were advised to take alternative routes. This wasn't part of the original plan, but staying safe was the top priority. As the snowfall intensified, David decided to take the alternative road. This route was narrower than the main road and passed through lower elevations. Although longer in distance, it was considered safer. Just after entering this new route, they decided to take a break to refuel and rest, just in case. Susan and John began exploring the small shopping area inside the rest stop. Large clay casseroles, an indispensable fixture of such roadside facilities, were filled with snow, while passengers waiting for their intercity buses took their final sips of tea and coffee. After refueling the car, David joined his family. They bought a few souvenirs and continued on their way. According to their calculations, they had 2 to 3 hours left to travel. As they entered the mountain road, the asphalt's color began to shift from black to gray. Snowplows stood ready on both sides of the road, offering a sense of reassurance. They were not the only travelers on this route. Other drivers had also heeded the warnings and chosen this road. The scenery unfolding between the mountains was the kind that made one fall in love at first sight. Susan took photos throughout the journey and shared them on social media with family and friends. John had fallen asleep in his seat, occasionally checking on her son in the back seat. Susan gently covered him with a blanket and adjusted the position of his head, which had tilted to the side under the weight of sleep. The weather was unpredictable, and the warnings from the news bulletin were unfolding one by one. At times, they struggled through heavy snowfall and strong winds. Moments later, the sky would clear, revealing snowy mountain landscapes beneath a blue sky. As they approached another area of heavy snowfall, all vehicles began to slow down. There was only one final challenging section left to pass. Though not at a high altitude, this pass had a reverse slope and a winding road. At one point, when the truck ahead slowed down, their vehicle ended up at the back of traffic. Before the curve, David checked whether the opposite lane was clear so he could overtake the truck without losing visibility. Seeing that the road was clear, he moved into the left lane. He overtook the truck at low speed, and just as he returned to his lane, they were jolted by a loud explosion-like sound and a violent shake. Losing control due to the slippery and damaged surface, the car swerved first to the left, then to the right before coming to a stop, leaning against a pile of snow. In fear and panic, Susan's first instinct was to check on John. Since he had been asleep, he hadn't understood what had happened and looked around in confusion. David, after ensuring his family was safe, stepped out of the car and began inspecting the surroundings. Other drivers who had witnessed the accident stopped and rushed over to help. Susan, having overcome the initial shock, hugged John tightly and began to cry. David noticed that one of the car's tires had blown out. He assumed this was the cause of the accident. The snowfall had stopped, and the weather was mild. Before conditions worsened, he maneuvered the car into an empty space on the roadside and began changing the tire. John was calmer now, but Susan was still under the lingering effect of the incident. After half an hour of effort, David washed his hands and face with water from a jug he retrieved from the trunk. As he was about to get back into the car, he noticed a shepherd approaching from the direction of the small hills off the road. He was young and had a cheerful face. "Get well soon, brother. I hope you're all okay," the shepherd said as he looked inside through the car window. He waved and smiled at John, while Susan cracked the window open slightly and, despite everything, managed a forced smile as she greeted him. "Hello. I'm very sorry about what happened. If you or your son need anything, I'll help with all my heart," he said. David thanked the young shepherd, explaining that everything was under control and that aside from a few scratches, the car was in good condition. Just as David had opened the driver's door, the young shepherd took a beaded bracelet out of his pocket and handed it to John through the open window. Though Susan said, "There's really no need," this small gift made John very happy. The bright beads, sea blue like John's eyes, were also his first New Year's gift. The shepherd smiled and waved goodbye to the family, and they set off again. David continued driving more cautiously and slowly. They had already covered a great distance and were getting closer to their hotel. At a junction, the navigation instructed them to turn right. David muttered that there hadn't seemed to be such a split further ahead, but he couldn't leave things to chance, especially with the weather changing constantly. When they reached the junction, he signaled and turned right. After a while, fog began to descend, first over the plateaus, then onto the road itself. As the car moved slowly forward, Susan and John fell asleep in their seats. The fog swallowed the sky, turning everything gray and gloomy. As they advanced cautiously through the fog, there were no oncoming vehicles, nor any cars traveling in the same direction. Yet surely there should have been other vehicles heading toward the ski resort. Although David wanted to turn back from the route chosen by the navigation, he had already come halfway. Then something strange happened. First, the navigation system shut down, then their mobile phones, and finally the car itself stalled. David couldn't understand what was happening. No matter how many times he turned the ignition, there was neither movement nor light from the vehicle. At that moment, Susan woke up. Rubbing her eyes, she told David that she had seen a strange dream and looked at their son John sleeping in the back seat. With the bracelet, His new source of joy around his wrist, John looked like an angel. David didn't dwell much on Susan's dream, as a much bigger problem stood before him. Susan asked whether the fuel had run out. "No," David replied. "Everything is normal, but for some strange reason all the devices failed at once." Though he considered calling roadside assistance, Susan panicked. Her phone was also in the same state and not working. As they struggled with these problems, they saw a bright light approaching them through the fog from the opposite direction. A sense of relief washed over them, and they simultaneously felt hope that they would be saved from this predicament. The light drew closer and closer until it stopped in front of their car. It was a dazzlingly powerful light, forcing them to shield their eyes with their hands. When they opened their doors and stepped outside, the light had vanished, and a young man stood before them. As David moved closer, he immediately recognized him as the young shepherd who had come to help when their tire burst earlier. They were both astonished. There was no way this young man could have reached this place before them on foot. "Fate," David said. "Look, you've appeared before us again. The car broke down this time and we're stuck here, and once again you came to our rescue. But didn't you have a car? Where did it go? And what was that light?" he asked in bewilderment. The young shepherd smiled. "Yes, fate," he said, and continued, "On this ancient journey where time stands still and space and dimensions change places and roles, mortal humans do not immediately understand what is happening. It takes time for souls and consciousness to comprehend the nature of the gate they pass through. But the supreme spiritual plan takes precautions even for this, assigning companions to those who set out on such journeys. And on this journey, I am your companion," he concluded. Susan was stunned by what she heard, and so was David. The strange shepherd was gone. In his place stood a radiant, upright, and wise man. "Look behind you," the shepherd said. When they turned around, neither their car nor their son was there. Susan screamed, desperately searching for their car in the fog. David was in no better condition than his wife. The shepherd left them in this state for a while. Then he approached, took both of them by the hand and said, "Come, it's time to go." They began to rise slowly into the sky. The indescribable panic and fear in Susan and David's souls were replaced by a deep serenity. As they ascended, the fog dispersed, and the bright rays of the sun dazzled their eyes. But something was missing. John was not with them. They glided among the clouds for a while, and as they approached a hill, the young shepherd gestured for them to look down. Below, they saw a highway where a major accident had occurred. People were running back and forth in panic. Susan and David couldn't make sense of it until the moment they saw their own car, severely damaged, among the wreckage. The scene had turned into a chaotic spectacle of flashing blue, red, and yellow lights from ambulances, police cars, and tow trucks. The injured were being carried into ambulances, while lifeless bodies lay on the asphalt as snow fell over them, waiting for hearses to arrive. And at that moment, the horrific accident they had suffered replayed before their eyes, second by second. On the foggy road, as they overtook the truck ahead, a tractor suddenly emerged from a side road. They first crashed into the tractor, then collided head-on with another vehicle coming from the opposite direction, before being dragged to the right side of the road and coming to a stop. The explosion-like sound they had heard hadn't come from a blown tire, nor had they safely pulled over. What they experienced was part of a painless, fear-free, instantaneous scenario prepared for them by the spiritual plan. David and Susan gazed at their car. They saw paramedics pulling John out through the open rear door, and on his wrist was the blue beaded bracelet. There was no sorrow, no grief, no sadness left within them. The lightness of the spiritual realm and a deep sense of trust enveloped their beings. Smiling, They took one last look at their son and rose toward the unknown gates of the sky.